And here's your host, Amina Fakir.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amina Fakir. I'm pleased to welcome today's guest, Synthia SAINT JAMES. Synthia SAINT JAMES is a world-renowned multicultural visual artist, award-winning author, illustrator, popular keynote speaker, educator, and architectural designer who has garnered numerous awards, including the prestigious Trumpet Award, a Coretta Scott King Award, a History Maker Award, and an honorary doctorate degree from St. Augustine's University. Dr. SAINT JAMES also serves as a global ambassador for Susan G. Komen for the Cure's Circle of Promise. Her paintings grace the covers of over 75 books, including the original international cover art for Terry McMillan's Waiting to Exhale and Ian Van Zandt's Acts of Faith, and her artwork has been featured in many international United States embassies. Dr. SAINT JAMES is now working on her 12th painting in a series which she will be self-publishing in book form via Amazon in November of 2020. The title of the book is Healers, Orishas, Shamans, and Deities, The Healing Art of Synthia SAINT JAMES, the cover of which is presented here and now for the very first time on social media. Synthia, thank you for joining me.
I'm so happy to be here.
Well, thank you. So let's just start first with your title, Dr. Synthia SAINT JAMES. Do tell us a little bit about your Doctor of Humane Letters degree.
That was a highlight of my mother's life when she could start calling me Dr. SAINT James, because that was something I received in 2010 from St. Augustine's University, where I worked often as an artist in residence. So they were giving me my doctorate for what I had done in my lifetime and what I have achieved that put me in that status, also for what I've given people. I would say the universe, what I've done through my art. So that was a wonderful honor, but also a distinction for a self-taught artist to now be Dr. SAINT JAMES.
Yes, and deservedly so. Self-taught artist from the Bronx who knew she wanted to be an artist at 5 years old. Tell us a little bit about that.
That little girl was something else. I still look at pictures of myself at that time, and people look at the picture and say, oh, how sweet and whatever, but I knew I was into everything. My other heart of hearts, it was always about being able to color, sitting down coloring and doing a little drawing, and that kind of like topped my life. I just love doing that. The art was always the top. There were all the other parts and journeys. There was not this great big list. I mean, the only other thing that doesn't even compare with it on a more sporty side was at 5, I thought about, oh, I'll be a jockey, but that passed very quickly. But that was the only other thing I even thought of for a second. The rest of the journey and all those hats that I have worn all had something to do with paying for the canvas and paints, as well as learning life experiences.
Okay, so when did you realize it was a gift?
Oh my God! When I would paint something and it would look like what I was trying to do, it would just be amazing to me, because I often, even now after 51 years of doing this, I'll look at a painting the next morning and be in awe that I was able to do that. So I always start with just a blank canvas, some ideas, but I let them develop as they develop. I don't plan them.
Okay.
So when I get something the way I want to, it's amazing to me.
You knew at 5 you wanted to be an artist, and something big happened at 20. What was that?
I sold my first painting, and I was in New York, right across from St. Patrick's Cathedral, where I worked, right across the street. And I sold my first painting. It was commissioned by a lawyer in the mortgage insurance company I worked for. So that was amazing to me, that I could actually get paid for what I love to do.
So at 25, you'd already done a lot of other things, but you also expressed yourself artistically in a wonderful poem, which you shared the content of. Maybe someday you'll share the poem with me, but just tell us a little bit about that, because you and I have that in common. I wrote a similar poem when I moved to LA, which meant we had our heads on straight coming to LA.
Well, both of us coming to LA, way, the different times we did, we were the new girl on the block. We were the new girl in the city, and everybody wanted to know about us, and sometimes that comes in the form of pursuing.
Right.
So then you're just like when you're hot, you're hot. You're the new kid. So that was the poem that because I moved back here when I was about 22, 23. So I was just amazed at all the attention, because I'm not a person that likes a lot of attention. And I just, on my 25th birthday, thought about it, and I just wrote this poem, about my art and what that meant to me, rather than what I actually look like, the superficial.
Mm-hmm.
So it was about being young, attractive, people pursue me, but one day we all get old. Yeah. And I don't want them to look at me and say what a beauty she used to be, but I want them to look at my work and say how beautiful she is.
Wow, mission accomplished and still going strong.
That was something, but both intense, even in our early 20s.
Absolutely. Okay, some things we do need to cover for people who may not know, who may just have enjoyed your beautiful artwork. Like me for many years, just looking, I can usually spot your work. It's very, I guess we could talk a little bit about how you created your style, but it's very distinctive.
Being self-taught, I really challenged myself a lot at different things. So I for some years, I painted children. I painted, people commissioned me to paint their grandchild or whatever, all very realistically, where the eyes watched you wherever you went. Oh, yes. During that same period, I was painting wild and domestic animals, that same sort of way, realistic, but somewhat with impressionistic brushstrokes. So I traveled and learned that of what I could do. And at one point in 1985, I was in Martinique, and I enjoyed just all these colorful marketplaces. And I came back home, and I said I would challenge myself to paint people featurelessly. So that's when that style started developing. I put people in my land and seascapes. Mm-hmm. And I've always been in love with colors. So colors is no problem. I always go for the brightest of colors. Yes. And I use anything from 6 to 10 coats of paint of that
Incredible.
Color. So by the time I'm done, it's so rich and vibrant that it stands out even. Yeah.
Another thing that stood out for me was the number. I mean, I knew about the Kwanzaa stamp, and of course I purchased the Kwanzaa stamp many times in my life, but you threw out a number of actually how many of those stamps were in print. What was that big number?
Yeah, well, 318 million. So a third of a billion.
Right?
Was that a third of a billion?
How incredible is that?
I didn't even know that till I Googled myself about a year ago.
Oh my goodness. Would you call your style maybe, I don't know, urban impressionism? Do you have a name for it?
Synthia SAINT JAMES.
Right? You're like, as a matter of fact, I do.
It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard because I will put maybe contemporary. They have labels that you have to put on some things, but I know I don't actually fit anything. And then you go, well, when there are people in it, then it's figurative. But it's not really connected to a movement or something in art. The only thing that I did that was my animals. They were more impressionistic.
Okay.
Their bodies, but their eyes were realistic. Because I love the Impressionists. Painting for me is like a breath of fresh air, revitalizing and stimulating, a magnificent gift from the Creator. Recently, I've begun to think of myself as a visual historian, an educator. Although this role was unintentional, my fascination with the cultures of our world have always inspired paintings. From the African diaspora to my series on the Gullah Geechee Sea Islands, my canvases have journeyed far and wide to also include Asia, Australia, Fiji, Tahiti, France, and Italy. I'm a huge sponge soaking up creative energies through all my senses. I feel that we've all been endowed with gifts from the Creator. And,
Yes.
and with those gifts comes responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
The first responsibility is to use them, use the gifts, and to use them well. And when you can also take that responsibility and help others in that work, and whatever that is, and helping, it could be something simple like gifting organizations with prints so they can raise funds. It could be the fact that you're just uplifting people's spirits, or that you'll go and help little children and with their coloring and encourage them. There's so many different ways of giving. But but I believe that all our gifts come with responsibility.
Oh, indeed. And you have proven to be very responsible and resourceful in many realms. We all know you as the amazing visual voice of our times, but you've worn a lot of different hats. Can you just tell us a little bit about your journey and how diverse it has been as far as coming up with ways to support your art?
Well, I would say that the accounting was in New York. Primarily is where it began.
Okay.
But in New York is where I was selling work as a commissioned artist, which was great because, you know, didn't need a gallery or anything. There were people that wanted me to do work for them, for their homes, some for their offices. And then when I think about that too, when you live in New York, you're indoors more. So your environment inside your home is very important to you.
Absolutely.
So my art sold well during that time. When I moved to Los Angeles, I've done everything from working in the record business, assistant general manager, national promotion assistant manager, of all of that PR, which is great because I learned PR. I've worked at Paramount Studios for a screenplay writer.
Right.
I worked at Disney Studios in educational media.
Wow.
I did some acting, a couple of films.
I was waiting for that one.
Well, that's the one I don't normally talk about, which is kind of interesting because I've always kept them separate pretty much. And most people that even know me or know my art never knew that in the 70s I also was an actress and did my work and Screen Actors Guild member and all of that. Well, it was called MMA, but when they MMA, but when it went to after the editing and other things they did, and when they wanted to commercialize it, they changed the name. The video would be under Black Sisters Revenge. It started as a UCLA master thesis.
Yes.
That was interesting, but because before I did that, I was like on this big production number, Dino De Laurentiis production Drum, where that everything is so catered and you're so treated so specially, and cared for. Then I went to On the Streets. You get to see me in platforms with big, a lot of hair and looking tall.
Yeah, looking like the girl that wrote that poem.
Yes. Window pane jeans and all.
Now you studied the arts for a while, and you had a very famous teacher. You want to give him a shout out?
Oh, sure, Glenn Turman.
Yay.
When anyone has ever said that and told me I did well on something, I always get a great big kick out of just saying my teacher was Glenn Turman.
Right.
But he was my main acting teacher. I took classes from other actors as well. Ron O'Neal, Ron Glass.
Wow.
I've had some really had some good instructors. Yeah. And took dance as well, jazz dance and all. Yeah.
You certainly have many facets, little lady.
And you know what? I thought about something that most people don't know of because I forget about the different things that I've done. But I'm thinking about television now. I was a Nielsen rater. You didn't even. How about that for a tidbit? How about that? I'm also a writer, several children's
Right,
books,
right.
and all of the paintings for books, and so just children's books is 17. My own books, there's about 4 or 5, actually 6, and then there's the poetry and my affirmation books and all kinds of things. But I'm working on a novel, and I just want to. My goal is to complete that, to release it sometime next year.
Well, may the force be with you on that.
Yes.
I will.
And you know what I forgot to tell you? You know what I forgot to tell you?
Oh, do tell me now.
I actually have co-written 2 songs, so I can put
how could you forget
songwriter.
that? Oh my goodness.
Because it's too much. It's too much.
It's
So
too
it's called Synthia
fantastic.
St. James Music. It's called Synthia St. James Music. Only 1 song on it, but I'm with BMI on that, you know, so that's kind of interesting.
Goodness.
So there's little here and there, so.
Happy Wanda. Light the candles one by one.
Another thing, I want to get some of my poetry and words to song.
Wow.
That's the other thing, to go with the novel, to get that more of that to happen.
You know, I can see that. I can see the artwork, the poetry, the music. Oh my goodness. You talk about a triple threat or a trifecta win. Oh my goodness. I don't know that it gets much more fabulous than that. Mm-hmm.
And one of my friends had I had one of my books translated into French. It was a poetry book called Can I Touch You? So Gary Chapman was an incredible dancer, and he spoke fluent French. So he would read my book in French. You know, so it was fun. We had so much fun.
Wow. Parlez-vous français?
Very little. Un peu.
Un peu. Moi aussi. Moi aussi.
Yes.
Je suis une étudiante à la 3e année, mais j'aime beaucoup le français. Love it.
It is the language that I wish if there was any other language I spoke fluently, it would be French.
Right. Yeah. I really hadn't planned on asking you this, but you know, I'm an ACT, SAT tutor, and we're always looking at jobs to prepare, you know, to recommend to students. And a couple of years ago, a nice report came out basically saying that most of the technical jobs will be able to be handled by AI and machines and computers. And they were saying, if you really want to give your child a good chance at a happy career, start extolling the virtues of the arts, you know, doing something that's not going to be easily replicated by a machine or a computer or technology. And I just thought, okay, we're just going back to everything old is new again, you know, go back. And
yes.
Seen a lot. You know, you sold your first painting in '69, but so that means you were young when we went through the civil rights movement, and you've seen some really amazing things, including Jesse Jackson running for president, Shirley Chisholm running for president, Barack Obama becoming president. We're possibly looking at a Black female vice president, but is there some other major event or something you'd like to see?
I would just like to see women of color realizing their value is one of the things that I feel strongly about. And I'm really going back to our younger women, you know, who don't really seem to know how important they are.
Yes.
You know, and how precious they are. And that they, from what they can see, they were taking things more for granted because they don't know. So it's more of a norm that we've had a Black president, for one thing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's more their norm, where in my lifetime, I would never imagine that I would have been able to have such a treat.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Really.
Right. My daughter was young when Barack Obama was campaigning, and I remember when it looked like that it could convert and he could actually be elected. I remember she said, "Why does everyone keep saying, you know, he's black, he's black?" And I said, "Well, because we've never had a Black president." And I didn't think she was 7 or 8, and she said, "Never? Like, how can that be?"
Right.
I just thought, I thought that perspective right there, just her reality
Yes,
is so different from, I mean, we were crying at the very
yes.
thought of it, and she's like, what's the big deal?
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. So they didn't really know,
Right.
So yeah. But like you said, it has been a lot. So then you go back, if you think of the civil rights in the 60s, I was in junior high and high school and all that. So it's wouldn't have been imaginable that to people, my peers, as well as my parents, that I could have ever become a successful visual artist, being a
Mm-hmm.
young
Mm-hmm.
Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
I would have
Mm-hmm.
never, but I've never put myself in a category either.
Most of your work is so happy, positive, upbeat, uplifting, bright, vibrant. It's one thing to see something that you think is lovely. And there's one, it's another thing to see something that you think is very accurate. But it's a whole other experience to see something that makes you feel a certain way that you enjoy and want to experience time and time again, so much so that you become a collector. So much so that you want many of those pieces in your home. And I mean, I'm one of those people, I know several. And so that is the piece. The way you make me feel is the artwork that I would most closely attribute to you. So if we may, one final
Well, I
word.
love that tribute.
Well, thank you.
I
Thank
love
you.
it.
We thank Michael Jackson for that one.
Right.
Okay. And so if you could just tell us what you're working on now.
I'm working on a series on healing,
Mm.
um, for what I can give myself in terms of serenity and what I'm painting through what we're going through, what the
Mm-hmm.
universe is going through,
Mm-hmm.
and also a way that would help others to have around or to focus on. And it's my piece on healers, orishas, shamans, and deities.
I think I'm so pleased that I've gotten so much insider stuff today.
You got a lot of new stuff.
This was so amazing and delightful. I can't tell you how wonderful I think you are.
Oh, that's so sweet. And you've kind of just uplifted me. I'm ready to create,
Oh,
because
excellent.
no, I very rarely speak of myself or talk about myself. So this particular interview has got me all jazzed and energized. So I'm ready to get to work.
Well, I'm happy to be
Yeah.
of service, madam.
This is going to be a continual journey with this wonderful, beautiful lady, Amina. So I hope you continue to support and watch all of what she's going to give us as gifts.
Thank you. Thank you so much.